transported, packaged, sold, and consumed. But I learned one thing, that 50 to 60% of the total calories, a lot of kids, mostly lower income kids, the total calories they were consuming every day, they were getting out of just high sugar drinks they got in school. Just the drinks. So all the advocates were saying we need to have a tax on these drinks. I'm not in Congress, so I don't get a vote on that. I'm not president anymore, I can't propose a bill. Besides, there'd be a riot in America if you tried to tax people's soft drinks. So anyway, I thought about the AIDS thing. We got all the soft drink people together. And we said, look at what's happening to the rate of diabetes. Type 2 diabetes, the kind you get from living, not the kind you're born with, was commonly called in the U.S. for decades adult onset diabetes. And 3 years ago, the American Medical Association said, you have to stop that. We have too many children with type 2 diabetes before their teen years, all because of what they're eating and how they are or are not exercising. So we got all the big soft drink people together. Coke, Pepsi, Cadbury, Schweppes, and a lot of the people with the high sugar juice drinks. And I said, look, you got a choice to make here. You can keep pumping these kids for money. And then by the time they're in their 30s or 40s, they'll be diabetic. Some of them have amputated limbs. They'll cost you a fortune in managed health care, plus the human tragedy. Or they can keep drinking your products till they're 95 and die a happy death in old age. And I don't believe that you were intentionally trying to make this the first generation of Americans to live shorter lives than their parents. But you're all meeting the competition. If, however, you all agreed to get those full sugar soft drinks out of the schools, out of the vending machines, out of the cafeterias, if you all agreed to get the full-size juice drinks, which are heavy in sugar, out of the schools, if you went to more flavored waters, if you went to other things, and you did it together, you would all be making money. You'd just be making it in a different way. And if you have a long time horizon, you'd have these customers around for much longer in a future where your operating costs from healthcare would be lower. And all my friends in the advocacy community said that I had finally lost my mind, that I was living in another planet. I was so naive. Last month, we got a 4-year report. There has been, totally voluntarily in the United States, a 90% reduction in the total calories shipped to our schools from drinks. It was a business deal. It was humanitarian. It was generous. It was kind. It was compassionate. But it worked for them. And so that's the larger point I want to make to you today. We got to find ways to make climate change work as an economic opportunity. I just don't buy this idea. Even the UN panel said for us to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050, we only have to cut global GDP by 1%. And if we don't do it, natural disasters are going to cut it 4 or 5 times more. I don't buy that. I think changing the way we produce and consume energy and sources and doing more with less is the single biggest economic opportunity of the next 20 years for the global economy. After which we'll have explosive opportunities in biotechnology and God only knows what else. So, on a much more limited basis, we just set out to try to prove that. And we looked for partners. Haiti has a horrible protein shortage. It has only 10% as much fish consumption as Jamaica, for example. So there's a guy in Haiti who was born in the Ivory Coast, who moved to Haiti to feed hungry people, who has a fish farming operation that runs entirely on solar power. He raises these fish until they are about that size, tilapia. Then he gives them to farmers and shows them how to grow them in lakes, natural lakes, and he splits the profit with them. I met a farmer, a Haitian farmer with 8 children, whose income went from $500 a year to $2,200 a year, being part of this system, and we are raising the health of the people. A woman, about 70% of these fish grow to full size and are sold in restaurants and markets. The other 30% are sold on the street in Haiti by women who can earn more money in 3 hours in the morning selling fish in the market than they can working in a factory for 8 hours a day. All because of the use of solar power in a smart, intelligent way. If you go to Sao Paulo, one of the biggest cities in the world, at the site of the 2 major landfills, they're trying to close the landfills by recycling all the plastic, metal, and glass, by taking all the organic matter and turning it into fertilizer for farmers, and everything else goes into power plants. So instead of emitting very harmful methane gases, they're creating clean electricity. We should close every landfill in every big city in the entire world. It's an economic winner if you do it right. Fundamental problem in all this clean energy stuff is getting the financing right, because all the costs are up front and the benefits are over a lifetime. But if you do it, it's a great thing. There are 2 big developments in the London area that are part of this zero emissions contest that my foundation worked with the C40s group, a group of there are far more than 40 cities in it now, a group of cities committed to drastic reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. These whole developments will be zero emission developments. I was just in the Danish city of Sønderborg, which is just across the German border in southern Denmark. They aim to be a zero emissions county, 80,000 people, zero emissions by 2029. And they have great little buttons because you have to look at it twice, because it seems strange to pass someone wearing a button that says, "I'm a zero." What looks like a put down is actually bragging. But they reduced their emissions 18% in 3 years. They're going to do 25% more by 2020, and they'll be down to zero emissions. The island of Bornholm, which is part of Denmark, has 44,000 people. It's already carbon positive when it comes to electricity. That is, they produce more from the sun and the wind, and they have very rigorous building standards, so they have super efficient, that they're sending power back to the main island where Copenhagen is. They aim to be a zero emissions island quicker than Sønderborg. So the 44,000 people have a massive community meeting and decided that they would all drive electric cars on the island. They would buy these electric mini cars and drive them around on their island, and they wouldn't drive their regular cars except when they went on long trips. So a friend of mine, an American, opened a plant in the United States, and his first 2 years of production are already accounted for by one island in Denmark. These little 2-seater cars. And they're going to do it. Hundreds of jobs have been created by this one little island. There is nothing that would create more opportunity for entrepreneurs, for the revival of manufacturing, than changing the way we produce and consume energy.